Hi everyone, I'm Evangeline right here at etrailer. Since every bike rack fits every vehicle differently, today we're going to focus on how the Thule Verse fits on the 2024 Buick Envision. If you like the Thule Verse because of its really easy to use features as well as pretty high weight capacity, but maybe you have a hitch that's recessed like what we have on the Envision, well, this video will address all that and talk about some tips and tricks for getting your best fit out of this. Now, on its own, in all reality, the Thule Verse works great with the Envision. Even with the hitch sitting so far in, because of how far out the bike rack sits, we've got all the clearance. For example, when I pull this lever to bring the bike rack down, we still have clearance where we're not hitting the ground, but then we also have clearance here with the honestly smaller hatch door that the Envision has. We're able to open it up, plenty of space between our door, our pedals, and our handlebars. So if you keep your helmets, your waters in here, or you're the type of person that likes to switch out your shoes out of your hatch, this is gonna be a good and honestly great fit. So compared to some other racks where sometimes they don't tilt down as far, that's not going to be the issue for you here. Now, another thing that would be to be mindful of is your weight capacity. Since you can carry 60-pound bikes with this rack, that's also 60 pounds per bike that you may have to lift back up from the tilt position. So just something to be mindful of there. With this rack, there are a lot of add-ons you can use with this, like you can add lights, you could add wheels for the bike rack to make it easier to store, you can even add a ramp. With the Envision being lower to the ground though, I personally don't think you need a ramp, even if you have the heavier bike, but that's totally up to you to decide on your own. The way the bike is mounted is you have 2 touch points. That makes the process a little bit faster. So the rear touch point is going to be this wheel chock. So notice how I have the strap around the wheel. This actually has a ratchet lever, which is pretty nice for getting the tightest fit on your wheel. Now we're going to take this out though, and just notice how I can just push this up and out of the way. And that way, that makes it easier to line that up with your own bike of different lengths. Next, we have the hook. So this hook, you press that lever there, and it's pretty much like a trigger. Lift that up and push that out. I like how close to the tray that hook pushes in, because then when your bikes are off and maybe you're just at the trailhead, the hook doesn't sit out as far compared to some other racks I see sometimes. So that's just a nice courtesy for other people. That way they're still able to park beside you, or they're not running into the open hook. So that's just a nice little touch from Thule for this rack. Now, when I am ready to go out and about, I usually have the hook to the other side. That way it just takes up less space. So speaking of space that it takes up, if you measure from your bumper to the end of the rack, this sits exactly at 3 feet or 36 inches. Now that is on the larger side for 2-bike platform racks. However, since the Envision is a smaller car, you do have more space to work with for those tight spots in small garages. Next is ground clearance. So the end of the rack to the ground here is 17 3/4 inches. And that's important because you don't want to bottom out when you go over potholes. In our case here, it'll be fine. Now where the bike goes, that's about 19.5 inches. And that's an important measurement if you have those heavier bikes, because you don't want to have to lift 60 pounds up and onto the rack. With that tray design, you really could just kind of like roll it on, get that front wheel on, get that rear wheel on too, and just roll it into place. So that's why I don't think you would need the ramp add-on. And this is going to be how it looks like in its compact position. So remember where we measured earlier? We're going to measure off there again to the end of the rack. This time it's about 11 inches. Big difference compared to when it was fully down. You'll have it in this position when you're driving around town, full visibility through your mirror, full visibility through your taillights. However, the backup camera over here is going to be centered right where that mast is. So you are going to have less visibility through that specific camera. There's plenty of cameras on the Envision though, so you still will have some kind of parking aid. Just double check to make sure that your rear or your backup alert system, it doesn't go off as much when you have a bike rack on there. I know that Buick does have multiple safety sensors, so just be mindful of the settings you may have to change whenever you do have a hitch mounted rack. But other than that, this is how your Thule Verse is going to look like behind your vehicle. A very strong, very sturdy bike rack. Some new features there like that ergonomic trigger and those easy to adjust cradles. The Verse is really nice when it is used as an add-on base where you can add different accessories depending on your needs, whether it's lights or wheels or a ramp or to convert into a 4 bike rack. If you're curious about how this fits specifically on your vehicle, well, this was a look at the Thule Verse bike rack on the 2024 Buick Envision.